Okay, well, it looks like things are okay-ish now. Interesting. Yeah, YouTube stream is healthy. It was telling me just then that oh hey, you this something has gone wrong. Let's also just move that just a little bit and my chat as well. Let's move that to where I want it, which is just a little bit there. Yes. Hi. Hello. Okay, cool. Okay. Well, we are ready to keep tithe farming, which we recently threw in about 600, fruits worth, basically. And the 600 fruits pushed us from 34 all the way up to 47. For, I mean, 2 hours, pushed up 10 levels. I kind of like that. I think that's really good. I think the next bracket for us, pie farming, is 54, and we get this Bologano fruit. So if we do another 1,000 or so, I guess 1,500. Hello. We should be able to be 54, and then we'll get slightly better XP for farming. By the time we get about 2,000 of these fruits, though, I think we should have enough points to kind of just buy out the rest of the shop. Because I think 2,000 gets you about 900 points. Something like that. But yeah, we're just gonna continue to do this now. We got the watering can. It's like the reason why I threw the 600 points now rather than later. I think I was aiming to do 2,000 hand-ins and then go after stuff. Go get the farming outfit, go get the watering can and doing all that stuff. But I was getting pretty sick and tired of, I would start some runs and forget I haven't refilled my watering cans. But with this one, I don't have to worry about that. There's 1,000 charges on this watering can, which is pretty good. So now we'll probably sit here and we'll wait until we get about 2,000 of the fruits. And after we get 2,000 of the fruits, we'll hand that in. We'll definitely be above 54. Can move to the next one. Get the farming outfit, doing all that stuff. Yeah, it's old school RuneScape. It is a satisfying game. It's a game that very much respects your time. And you can do these kind of long grinds and not feel like you're missing out on content or that you're not progressing. And I personally like Tithe farming because I hate regular farm training. I don't like tree runs. I think I said this on Tuesday. I think farming is the worst skill, and it's the worst skill because it requires teleports to do semi-efficiently. Like teleports are a requirement, and you don't really get that in any other skill. Like, I don't mind that farming is sort of like a skill that breaks up other skills, where like every 3 hours or so you go off and you do a herb run and a tree run. But what I do hate is I can't go to one area, do a herb run and do a tree run. It sucks that I need like, 7 different teleports. If you're trying to do those things efficiently, you need like 10. You need like 15 different individual teleports. Just sucks. I don't like it. Yeah, it does. Like the skill was designed to make you struggle. I don't know. Tithe farming is good though. You can just sort of sit here, you can hand in your experience. Not the best experience, but at least you can hand it in. What do you cultivate? It's so this is a mini game within RuneScape. So this area is designed for you just to do one repetitious activity. You're growing these plants. And then after you grow these plants, and they're on timers, so if you're not watering them and taking care of them, they will just die. You cultivate these plants, and you get these fruits. When you hand in these fruits into the sack, you get experience and points in the farming skill. And the points you can use to purchase different things from the minigame shop. And like one of the good things is, one, this watering can, because then you don't need to carry 50 of them around with you. You get the farmer's outfit, which increases the amount of experience that you get when you do farming activities. And then there is the auto weeder, where none of your farming patches will ever grow weeds again as long as you have that thing on. Giving me a doctor vibes? What do you mean the doctor vibes? That's interesting. A doctor vibe. A driver vibe? No idea. So yeah. Normally, see, now that I have the watering can, normally I have to refill my water every single one of these runs. Now I don't have to spend the 15, 20 hot seconds per run doing that each time. Since I'm doing 21 fruits per run, if I want 2,000 fruits, I'm going to need to do 100 of these runs, which isn't too bad. Like each of these sort of cycles takes, what, 5 minutes? So what's that? In 60 minutes, I'll be able to grab 12 of those cycles. So then it's just going to be maybe 10 hours if I'm being inefficient. If I'm being pretty efficient, it'll be about 8 hours, and then I'll be done. My glasses make me look like a doctor. That's interesting. That's interesting. I mean, hey, I am in academia. I am a teacher, so we're not too far off. We're not too far off. Yeah, I know. Yeah, they're calling me a doctor. It's just my wife in the background. All right, so with this out of the way, though, we are going to watch because most of the things I do in RuneScape is just like me doing a repetitive mini game. What do I teach? Maths and religion. Those are my two subjects. Teach in high school, which is a bit of a struggle sometimes, but you know, it's just the kids of today. They have a very different culture and ethos to even when I was in school, what, 20, 15 years ago. Yo, Matt, you know what? Matt's actually got a lot more tougher in New South Wales. So in Australia, New South Wales, a change to the syllabus was made. And what they did is they brought content from year 12 and they have now placed that content in the year 10 syllabus. So there was content that last year I was teaching to the year 12s, but this year I'm teaching it to my year 10s. And personally, I think it's bloated out a lot of the topics. I just went through the finance topics with my year 10 students. And usually you deal with percentages, you're dealing with percentages, you're dealing with currencies, you're dealing with wages, you're dealing with calculating tax. But in addition, I needed to teach them compound interest. And when you teach compound interest, you normally always need to talk about how often you compound that interest, whether it's biannually, monthly, weekly, daily, whatever, right? And the year 10s are able to take a formula and manipulate it, but they very much struggle with getting a paragraph of sort of worded information and then interpreting what variables they need to change based on that word information. They still haven't quite developed that skill yet. So yeah. Did you just ask the question, why do Aussie girls have so much ego? The real question, Olivia, is why do girls have so much ego? No. What do you mean, Aussie girls? I mean, that's just the Australian way. We're clearly the best at everything in the world. There's just no question about it. Ignore the fact that we just copy America 2 months later after whatever America does. All right, just forget about that. We invent everything. We invented Wi-Fi, all right? You should be thankful. All right? It was an Australian that invented Wi-Fi. All right? You should be thanking me. You should be like groveling in my chat. Always thought it was for geniuses. You know what? That it is a kind of like interesting point that in sort of the school system, if you're not good at art, then that's okay. Not everyone's an art person. But if you're not good at maths, then like there's something wrong with you. And that's kind of the mainline position most schools take. I find it a little bit interesting. Like there's clearly just like a priority that's placed on the subject. Been enjoying my content, but I couldn't. Yes, there's no graphics on my stream. You are not the first person to point this out. My wife is laughing about this now. I'm just gonna cut you off, Olivia, before the question comes forward. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in art. I'm not interested in commissioning anything. I'm not interested in acquiring anything. Ooh, I don't think I'm gonna be able to get that plant next round. Thank you, but I am in no way interested in sharing some ideas. It will enhance my stream. All right. I'm gonna do the same thing you I did with another guy 2 days ago. Okay. Olivia, I want you to tell me. All right, let's imagine we get 2 streamers. Let's imagine we get me. Let's imagine we get Asmongold. And we take away Asmongold's icon, his profile picture. And then we give me a profile picture. How many viewers exactly do I steal from Asmongold? You know, let's go through the thought experiment. Because the theory at the moment, if all these things really do enhance stream, is that suddenly the other person should lose viewers to me because I have the thing that enhances streams and they don't have the thing that enhances stream. Okay, just check my work on Insta. No, thank you. Listen, I appreciate the hustle, but I'm not interested. No. Why do Aussies not support? You know, let's go through the virtue ethics of this position. Why is that owed? You're gonna leave. All right, see you later. But instead, I shall give a lecture on the virtue ethics of the position. you know why is it an owed action? Right? Why is it that it is a good and virtuous action for me to comply with the request to view the artwork? Is it not an infringement on my freedom? You know, why is this seemingly a right demanded by others? You know, should we then get every single streamer on the platform and just by virtue of being in their chat demand that they go to the Instagram page and view the artwork? Now, yeah, sure, you can say that yes, this was a request, but you know, let's go back through the chat logs, right? The chat logs have you just saying, just check it. You know, why do Aussies not support, right? So just checking wasn't a request because when I said no, the complaint becomes, you know, why not support? Why do Australians in general not support? So clearly, this is a position that you believe is owed to you. And so the question becomes, right, like if we extrapolate that to the rest of the Twitch people, people streaming on Twitch, that why is it owed that being in chat, sending a message, requires, morally speaking, that the person then engages in your content? And the answer is it doesn't. All right, that's it's called slavery. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter if you like take it from a virtue ethics, like what virtue is being demonstrated through the activity. It doesn't matter if you go like through a deontological position of just the goodwill of society. You know, it only really works from like a singular pragmatic kind of perspective, a utilitarian kind of framework. See, now we're changing our tune as well. The apology, I love Aussies. You know, Aussies do support. I'm not offended that you don't like Australians or you're a bit frustrated with us. That's fine. I don't I don't care. It's the principles behind it that what I care about. Like, word of advice: if you go to someone else's chat, there has been one person that was very successful with me. Actually engage with their content. Don't just lead off with like, "Hey, how you going?" and then jump into the art conversation. You know, if you actually want to capture someone as a customer, then what you actually should do is you and this is going to suck on your end, actually spend the hour with the person. Because once you've spent the hour with the small streamer, that's when a relationship has been formed. And they then feel obligated to actually engage with your artwork or your socials or whatever. You know, if you have honestly and actively engaged with the person for an hour, you've built a kind of relationship, and the relationship then can be leveraged towards your business or your goals or whatever. And it is fine and just to do so because, you know, you have helped the person by hanging out with them for an hour and interacting, and the person can help you by just the engagement. I think the person has left because my numbers have dropped from 2 to 1. There we go. I managed to bore someone to death with ethical frameworks. It does happen. If I have one more philosophical conversation with you, I'm sure you'll divorce me. Okay. After this farm run, what I'm going to do, at the very least, is we're going to watch Peter Dutton's response to the budget. Budget just got set in Australia by Labor in, you know, what handouts they're going to promise me, the voter, if they get re-elected again. And we're gonna see how Dutton responds. I have not necessarily liked his response over the last week, but I also do not like the budget proposed by Labor. So I'm interested to see, you know, Dutton do it more formally on the House floor, and we're going to observe that while I do some farming. So let's have a look. Let's observe the circus that is Australian politics. I'm sure there's going to be lots of time for interruption. Oh wait, I should move my chat from my left-hand side to my right-hand side over here. There we go. All right, so let's strap in. Let's get ready to watch the full speech. Opposition leader Peter Dutton delivers budget reply.
Well, to Australians listening tonight, thank you very much for your time. Soon you'll have a say in determining the future of our great country. We live literally in the best country in the world, and we're the beneficiaries of what our
Okay. I know I'm pausing immediately. But what I've noticed with Peter Dutton is he is attempting to just like, he's trying to use the same branding that Trump does in his speech, right? And the thing is, Trump is very effective, but he's effective because he's Trump, not because of the way he speaks. The way that he speaks off-puts quite a lot of people. But he's effective because, you know, Trump is seen as this like hyper-confident guy. And it draws people to him. And because he speaks hyperbolically every single time he does speak, he's able to blur the lines better. And so if he doesn't exactly keep a promise to something, he's kind of forgiven. Because well, he was just memeing at that point. But traditional politics has not run that way, and Peter Dutton has not run that way for all of his political career. So him switching to this kind of tactic is not actually good, because I don't have the same sense with him as I do like with Trump. That the man is he's memeing in this instance, right? I don't know. There's just something I've noticed that he's done as a tactic.
Built and defended. We love this country because it has forged us into a remarkable people. We're compassionate, we're stoic, we're fair, and we're quietly patriotic. We cherish this country because it affords opportunities like no other. But only, and I stress this point, if we're governed well. When Australia is governed badly, dreams and ambitions become beyond reach. And that's what's happened during the last 3 years of the Albanese government. In my travels across the country, Australians tell me that they're working hard, but they're not getting ahead. In Perth, a mum in a grocery store, in tears, told me how her husband and children couldn't keep their heads above water with the bills stacking up. In Adelaide, I spoke with a food manufacturer whose electricity prices had gone up by about 300%. In Victoria, I spoke with a supermarket employee, a woman in her 60s, who had a machete held against her throat during a robbery. In Brisbane, I listened to a young couple in their 30s who have moved back in with their parents because they simply can't buy a home, even though both of them are working overtime. Now, such stories have now become commonplace across our country. Stories of rent and mortgage stress, stories of power, shopping and insurance bills going through the roof, stories of home ownership being out of reach for so many, and stories of it being increasingly difficult to see and to afford a GP, and stories of crime on our streets. For so many Australians, aspiration has turned to anxiety, optimism to pessimism, and national confidence to national uncertainty. The truth is, Australians can't afford 3 more years of the Albanese government. Yeah. Now, every election is important, but this election does matter more than others in recent history. It is a sliding doors moment for our nation. A returned Albanese government in any form won't just be another 3 bleak years. More economic mistakes will take a lot longer to recover from. Setbacks will be set in stone, and our prosperity will be damaged for decades to come.
Okay, listen. He's playing the verbal game very well, right? Because I think the Liberals are very aware that the upcoming election is going to be fought on the basis of people feel bad about their economic situation at the moment. People in Australia specifically, we feel like that we cannot buy a home. And you know what? It's actually very true. But that's relegated to specific areas, though. The main reason most people can't buy a home is actually because people are also unwilling to leave the cities, the major CBD centers of their states. People are unwilling to leave Brisbane. They're unwilling to leave Melbourne. They're unwilling to leave Sydney. They're starting to become unwilling to leave Perth. Perth was actually doing pretty well in terms of like housing and costing until about 2-3 years ago. And then all that stuff started to dramatically rise along with the rest of the country. Technically speaking, if, for example, in my situation, Sydney, if I were to leave Sydney and go north like 3 hours or so, we could purchase like a sizable 3-bedroom home at a decent price that is actually well within the budget of a high school teacher, for example. Well, the problem is I don't want to leave. I don't want to be 3 hours out of Sydney. I want to be in Sydney. Everyone wants to be in Sydney. There's nothing up there. There's no infrastructure that is built outside of our major city hubs. That's like I think that's the number one problem that we have in Australia. We have no infrastructure in areas that are not the CBDs. We have not developed other areas of our land. Like, it's kind of wild. Like, we have more land mass than America, but we're starting to feel very crowded as a population of 28 million, as opposed to America's 380 million at this point, I think it is. Right? Like, just think about that difference, right? We have more land than them. And land you can live in. And yet we're feeling more crowded than them. I am going to pull him up, though, on the point, though. How is he so sure the Liberals are going to solve these issues? Like, you know, I wonder who was in power before Labour, Albanese won 4 years ago. Who was in power then, huh? I wonder. And did we have the same issues we had then as we do now? Oh, you know what? We actually did. So, like, if Labour's smart, what they really should do is actually, like, point out that historic injustice. They should actually point out that, hey, Liberals, you actually had a really long run. And then we came in for a couple of years trying to untangle your mess. And, you know, we haven't been able to do so, but, you know, we've been trying. At the very least, they could kind of battle against this whole framework that Liberals are trying to put up at the moment. That framework being Labour wants you to be poor and own nothing, and we want you to own things. Even though I don't think their policies really will translate into those kind of benefits that they're talking about.
But you have the power to change the path our country is on. You have the ability to reverse decline. And you have the opportunity to get our country back on track. You can do that by voting for your Liberal or Nationals candidates so that a new Dutton coalition government can be elected. And at this election, the choice could not be clearer. Tonight, I'll outline the choice Australians face at this election and our plan to fix Labor's mess. We have a positive plan to deliver. A stronger economy with lower inflation, cheaper energy, affordable homes, quality healthcare and safer communities. A plan to help you and your families. A plan to bring about a stronger, safer and better Australia. A plan to usher in more confident, resilient and self-reliant people right across the country.
So, okay, like, I understand. This is all advertising for the party. Fully understand that. That's okay. But one of the questions that I always have is like, okay, yes, okay, you're saying that, you know, the plan that I'm offering is going to do X, Y, and Z. It's going to make things A, B, and C better for people, and it's going to solve X, Y, Z problems. Okay, right. You can make all these large promises to me all you want. That's fine. But tell me, what consequences are you going to suffer if your plan does not work? Right? Can you tell me the percentage you believe that the plan will get the outcomes that you're looking for? Can you tell me what the effect of those outcomes are? And that if that does not come to pass, you know, what punishment can I put on you? That's what most people across the globe right now are looking at in politics, right? Because we've had about 20 years of politic talk of the politician will come in and say, here are the things I'm going to promise, and here's the things that are going to improve in your life if you vote for me. And then none of the things come to fruition. And then you vote for the opposite guy, right? And people are a little bit tired of that cycle. And people are now sort of, they have this feeling among them of, well, it really feels like you're lying to me. What guarantees can you give me, and what can I do to you if you don't follow through with your promise? Those are the feelings of people at the moment. And if a politician were able to answer those questions, like even if it was like fake answers, right? And they weren't held to account for all those answers, I'd probably vote for them in an instant, just because at least that shows something different. People want something different in politics right now.
And we need to accept that we live in a more dangerous and disruptive world. And to these ends tonight, I will announce new policies that a coalition government would...
Wait, how's the world more dangerous? The war in Ukraine is basically ended. A peace agreement is going to be like hammered out within a month. Seems like the world's getting more peaceful. I don't know.
Implement. Tonight, I commit a coalition government to the following. We will introduce 4 critical pieces of legislation on the first sitting day in the next Parliament. 1, the Energy Price Reduction Bill. 2, the Lower Immigration and More Homes for Australians Bill. The Keep Australians Safe Bill. And the Guaranteed Funding for Health, Education and Essential Services Bill. This is my signal to the Australian people of what my...
Okay. 2 of those bills, the Energy Price Relief Bill and the Guaranteed Funding for Education and Medicare Bill. By the way, Dutton, you may or may not know this, but it's public knowledge that this is actually something Labor has put forward and that you have agreed to continue with. So, I mean, this isn't your idea. You just agreed that it's a good idea to give funding to these things. And that primarily has come from Labor, So don't try and swindle me that you're trying to give me something different.
My priorities will be in government. In his 4th budget, like the previous 3, the Treasurer again painted a rosy picture of the economy. But Australians aren't silly. Your bills tell the true story of Labor's cost of living crisis. And here's the facts of the Albanese government's economic record. Rents are up by 18%. Housing is up by 14%. Groceries up by a staggering 30%. Electricity is up by 32%. And insurance is up for many households and businesses by 35%. Australians have experienced the longest household recession and the worst collapse in living standards in our country's history.
I think the Great Depression was a little worse. I mean, not to say things aren't bad, but I think things have been worse in the past. The real issue is that the savings of Australians are being squeezed. Australians are only able to save less and less and less and less. In terms of like your household budget. Some of that comes from our superannuation policy that we as a country are forced to save. I think it's close to 12% at this point. So, if I go work for a company and the company offers me $100,000, 12 grand of that doesn't actually meet my pocket. 12 grand of that goes to my superannuation. That I don't get until retirement. Not to say it's a bad thing, but the government seems to be giving me more and more policies directed towards me accessing my superannuation before age 65. So, if you're just going to let me use the money, why don't you just let me use the money? Why are you forcing me to do superannuation? Again, not that it's a bad thing. It's probably like held our retirement population up. I think other countries are really, really struggling with how the elderly are financing themselves. But I think Australians, by and large, are actually really, really good. The worst thing that sort of happens to our elderly is that we get swindled out of our money. The Australian elderly seem to be scammed quite a lot. But the Australian elderly don't have a homelessness issue. like other countries sort of do, or a reliance on, you know, family care, like other countries seem to have.
Labor interest rates have gone up 12 times, but only been cut once, and they've stayed higher for longer compared to other comparable nations. This budget makes clear that Labor was only able to deliver 2 surpluses, piggybacking off the former coalition government's strong economic management.
Labor has not had any surpluses. In terms of the budget, yes, okay, they saved more money than they spent, okay, but a couple million is not making a dent in our nearly $1 trillion deficit that Australians are operating under. I think it used to be like 20 years ago, we used to actually have no debt as a country. And then over the last 20 years, we've just decided, you know what? Countries of the world buy our bonds. Now, that may work for America, but that game plan is not going to work out for Australia in the long term. We need to actually figure out how to keep our own economy afloat without the aid of selling out governmental bonds to everyone.
As well as record commodity price windfalls. And now the outlook is one of deficits as far as the eye can see. For 3 years, Labor peddled the lie that they inherited $1 trillion of debt. Yet in the budget papers that we saw on Tuesday night, they confirm that the Labor Party will burden Australia with $1 trillion of debt as of next year. Tuesday's budget was one for the next 5 weeks.
You got to spend money to make money. That's what Labor's budget shows. You gotta, hey, listen, guys, all right, we got to take on some debt so we can start making some moolah for the Australian people.
It's not one for the next 5 years. It was a shameless election voting exercise, not a plan for our country's future. It was about saving Prime Minister Albanese, not about you, and certainly not about safeguarding our nation. Jim Chalmers' so-called tax cut top-up is simply a tax cut cop-out. It's a cruel hoax. Now, Labor will spend $17 billion of taxpayers' money to give you back 70 cents a day in 15 months' time. And yet a family with a typical mortgage under this government is $50,000 worse off. I think it's insulting, to be honest. Now, we oppose these tax cuts and will repeal.
Will that change under your government? I agree. It's bad that people with mortgages are paying, on average, $50,000 more on their mortgage. Okay, and that's due to the fact that we kept our interest rates so high for so long. Okay, I agree with that. But you don't get to dictate the interest rate of the RBA. I mean, you can pressure them, but like the RBA is the one that sets the interest rate, and it's set up that way in a for particular reasons, so that like you can't like do random things to the economy. That the financial people are the only ones allowed to do random things to the economy. So, I mean, you don't have the ability to control these things. All right, it's great that you're speaking about it, but you don't have the ability to actually change these things and control these things.
Them because we think there's a better way to provide assistance to Australians. We will provide immediate cost of living relief for Australians. A coalition government will halve the fuel excise for 12 months, and then we'll review it, and we'll make sure that comes in.
So fuel. Actually, okay, all right. Let's actually let's look at the last time when this happened, right? So. I believe that this was happening under when there was problems with the amount of trade that was going through the canal and like disruptions that were happening in the Middle East. And suddenly in Australia, fuel prices shot up to like $2.30 a litre. And prior to that, they were hanging out at around $1.60. For anyone that can remember. So it goes from $1.60, and then, you know, there's a massive global crisis in regards to the supply of oil and petrol and all these things, and prices shoots up. The government puts in an excess. The government says, okay, listen, we're going to remove some of the excess. We're going to like reduce some of the taxes on fuel. We're going to make it a little bit cheaper for Australians to purchase fuel. The price of fuel drops down to about $1.90. So number one, still a 30-cent increase per liter, which is not good. And then number two, after the excess, happened, after the excess was over during that period, the price of fuel stayed at $2.20. It just like slowly increased to $2.20, and it hasn't gone down. And now it's been hanging around that $2 mark to $2.10 mark on average, really, for the last 2 years. Sorry, did I ruin your phone call? Oh. Oh, okay. So she just like pants called you. All right. Okay. So yeah, like, listen, I think it would be nice. It would be nice for fuel to be cheaper for 12 months. I don't think fuel will actually be cheaper. What will happen is that the companies will pocket the payment and then like just keep prices the same and say that, oh, well, price, they'll do like a Coles and Woolies moment where they'll say, oh, fuel is suddenly $2.80. Thanks for the fuel excise cut. Fuel is now $2.20 because of that cut. Right? They're gonna raise the price so that they can give you the original price as a discount.
On the first day that our parliament sits. Yeah. For a household with one car filling up once a week, that's a savings of about $14 a week, or around $700 over the year. For a household with two cars filling up once a week, that is a savings of $28 a week, or around $1,500 over 12 months. Compare that to 70 cents a day in 15 months' time. Now, working with industry...
Yeah. That money is not minuscule. Like, I think the money is good, all right? Being able to save $14 a week on fuel, or $28 a week on fuel if you have two cars, that's good. That's nice. It's not an inconsequential number. But, it's inconsequential when compared to all your other bills. Like, for example, is that $14 a week that people are on average going to get as a saving, right? Is that going to make up for the fact that electricity prices in New South Wales are about to jump up by 9%? Are they... Does one cover the other? Because if it doesn't, then like you're focusing on the wrong problem. You should be focusing on the biggest expenses and trying to cut those, not worrying about fuel. Fuel is good for industry. Fuel price is good for industry. Fuel price, I don't feel impacts average Australians all too much. I think it impacts industry a lot, but it doesn't impact average Australians.
Will ensure that heavy vehicle road users also benefit from this measure, and will make sure the ACCC will ensure that the fuel excise cut will be passed on in full to consumers. Yeah. The policy will cost $6 billion. Amidst Labor's cost of living pressures, charities are experiencing increased demand, including from Australians who never previously relied on that support. To scale up assistance...
Wait. Okay, wait. How much do you say it will cost?
The policy will cost $6 billion.
Okay, so it's going to cost $6 billion. Let's just do a little activity, shall we? Let's get the calculator open. And let's say the population of Australia is 28 million. I think it's a bit lower than that, but let's just say it's 28 million. So what we're going to do is we're going to go 6 billion, 6,000, 6 million, 6 billion. And we're going to divide that by 28 million. Oh, it looks like my son is having a yell. So if I divide it by 28 million, I mean, you could just give me $214. But not only that, right? Looking at these numbers don't really add up. So you're telling me that, it's going to give, average Australians $14. It's going to give them $14 a week in sort of like back in their pocket. So that's $728 a year. Why is it that if I were to divide it by the population, that it comes out to, close to a quarter of this amount? And like the obvious answer is some people don't drive. Some people don't have cars. Some people cycle. Some people take public transportation, all that kind of stuff. But that is kind of curtailed by industry. And he said that he wants to pass on this fuel excise to industry as well, and the heavy truck drivers, right? Our good old Australian truck drivers. So how is it that it's going to cost? Like if I divided out the cost of the policy, that the number doesn't sort of come close to this number, that the number is a quarter less than this number. I don't know. It just feels like on this basic level, if you're going to run a policy that's going to lower the fuel excise, which means that you're probably going to be paying the rest of that excise, and that's going to give me a saving of 700. How come dividing it by the population gives me 728? Dividing by the population gives me about 200, right?
Amidst Labor's cost of living pressures, charities are experiencing increased demand, including from Australians who never previously relied on that support. To scale up...
I actually heard the other day there are 3 million Australians who are like one step away from homelessness. That's kind of wild when you look at that number, because that's more than 10% of our population. Like, if you're placing it in percentages, that's 10% of the population is one step away from homelessness. That's a scary number. And that's not also inclusive of our current homeless population. Which Sydney, like when I did some like stat searching for Sydney for Vinny's winter appeal, like Sydney is so bad. Sydney's so bad on the homelessness issue. I think we have something in the realm of 1 to 2 million homeless already. So now the number's starting to get a little bit even scarier, and it's starting to form a 1 in 6 Australians are one step away from homelessness. That's kind of wild.
Assistance and provide immediate relief. We will commit $50 million for food charities like Food Bank, Second Bite, and Oz Harvest to expand.
50 million? Really? 50 million's gonna solve it? Hey, wait. Why don't we just, okay, listen. What we'll do is we will give $1 million to the 3 million homeless people. That's what we'll do. And we solve homelessness. That would actually be a really bad idea. It would inflate all prices. But, it'd be radical. We could just like test it to confirm if it actually did like have a dramatic effect on prices.
Expand their services and to include school breakfast programs. They approached the government with this plan and it was rejected in this budget. Of course, to get out of Labor's economic mess and to tackle Labor's cost of living...
By the way, in case you are unaware, in Australia, when people are speaking in Parliament, you can say hear, hear, or like no or something when you're saying deny. And then you can tell whether something is a good or bad policy based on how many people in Parliament are saying hear, hear. So we have like a cheer-based system here in Australia. That's how we know a politician's doing well.
In crisis, we need hard decisions and a proper plan. The coalition government will do three things. First, we will rein in inflationary spending. We will reduce the cost of energy. And third, we will strengthen the economy so that it works for you. I just want to address each of those aspects in turn. Mr. Speaker, over 3 years, the Albanese government has increased spending as a share of the economy more than any government since the recession of the 1990s. Now, it's lifted spending by an extraordinary $425 billion. That's about $40,000 per Australian household. Now, much of this spending...
that I could have had. Why are they not giving me $40,000? Come on.
Hasn't gone to essential services or generated economic activity. Rather, it's been inflationary, it's been ineffectual, and it's been wasteful. Such rapid and unrestrained spending is not only adding to the debt that our children will have to repay, but it's also keeping the pressure on inflation. And during a cost of living crisis, that's the last thing that you want. And the Reserve Bank Governor has independently pointed out this great failing in this bad government. A core inflation under this government has averaged more than double what it was under the coalition. Personal income taxes paid have also increased by about 24% under Labor. The average taxpayer is now paying $3,500 more tax this year alone, or for a dual income household, $7,000. And that's a big hit. I want Australian families to be making choices about what they will eat.
All right, how long have I been streaming? 57, okay. All right, good night. All right. Okay. Yeah. All right, let's just keep listening.
Not choices about whether they can eat or heat, which is the prospect facing many people, particularly pensioners and those on low incomes in our country right now. I want to make sure that we can fight the cost of living pressures because we need to get interest rates down. And to get interest rates down, we need, of course, to get inflation down. To get inflation down, we need to address its underlying causes, and that's just something the government hasn't done. We want to stop wasteful government spending. And tonight I announced that a coalition government will rein in key inflationary, ineffectual and imprudent spending, which has been a hallmark of this government. Yeah. We will end the reckless $20 billion Rewiring the Nation fund. Yeah. We will stop...
See, okay. See what I mean about my earlier comment about he really is trying to like garner that attitude that sort of Trump has that makes him really, really popular of, hey, listen, here's what I'm just going to do. I'm going to walk in. I'm just going to start cutting everything. I'm going to walk in there. I'm going to shake the tree. I'm going to see what falls out and then I'll pick it up. You know, I like the attitude, but we need to be a little bit careful about what we like. $20 million for rewiring the nation. Okay, cool. Like, I mean, it sounds nice. I might want to actually know what's in there. And $20 million in terms of our budget isn't actually a lot. So maybe I do want to keep it.
The $10 billion Housing Australia Future Fund, which has not built a single additional home.
Yeah, yeah.
We will scrap Labor.
Yeah, we can get rid of that. $10 billion to not build homes. I think we can cut that.
There's nearly $14 billion of production tax credits for green hydrogen because it is not going to work. We'll reverse Labor's increase of 41,000 Canberra public servants because it will save about $7 billion a year. That's money that we can provide back to the Australian people in frontline service.
Yeah, but like, you're not going to give me that money. You're going to not give me that money. You're going to hang on to that money and use it for whatever niche program you want to do. You know, that's what's going to happen.
Services. And the growth rate of public servants under this government in Canberra is about 3 times the rate it was under the Rudd-Gillard government. But I make this guarantee to the Australian people tonight. In line with our national interest, we will continue to invest in essential services and critical areas of the economy, like health and aged care, veteran support, the NDIS, Indigenous affairs, childcare and defence. We won't cut frontline service delivery roles. We will ensure that the services Australians rely on are sustainable. Under Labor, you will be guaranteed of a number of things, but one thing I'm sure of is more reckless and wasteful spending, which will cause interest rates and inflation to stay higher for longer. And that means you'll pay more for everything. More for food, more for rents, more for your mortgage, more for power, and more for insurance. You'll continue to pay more tax too. But under the Coalition, we will fight cost of living pressures at their source. At the very centre of Labor's cost of living crisis is, of course, the skyrocketing cost of energy. And that's due, of course, to Anthony Albanese and Chris Bowen's reckless renewable-only policy train wreck. Now, as every Australian knows, energy is the economy. Australians are paying some of the highest power prices in the world. Indeed, up to 3 times more than comparable economies. And the Albanese government has broken its core election promise when it comes to energy. Your electricity bill hasn't gone down by $275, as Labor promised, on 97 occasions.
Okay, all right, great. All right, we're gonna hang them out to dry on this issue. Politician lies. Someone tell the Sunday telly. All right, we got to put this on the front page. But like, you know, you're giving me a guarantee now that the prices are going to go down. Other than saying mean words in Parliament and like laughing at them a little, giving them a little chuckle, what will happen to you if you don't follow through with this promise? That's what I want to know. That's what I desperately want to know. Because I think the number one issue at the moment that Australians have with politicians in general is we feel like they are getting away scot-free. Like, this guy has like 5 different because we had a big sort of investigation on like, well, what is everyone's property portfolio? This guy has like 5 $1 million homes, and just a whole bunch of cash sitting around. And it's like, how are you a millionaire when your pay is, 180 grand a year, 200 grand a year? How did you get all that money? Is that Lord Voldemort? Yes. This is Australian Lord Voldemort. We're watching Australian Harry Potter. It takes place in Parliament. They instead of casting spells, they throw slander and promises at each other. Charms are an effective spell casting thing here. Fucking Peter Dutton. Listen, I don't have very much against the guy, because what I have against the politicians is the same thing I have against all of them. Is that they're all liars. I think Clive Palmer is the troll from the second. Yes, actually, and the dungeon is Queensland. All right, let's continue.
The Prime Minister and the Treasurer refuse even to mention that word, even though they looked you in the eye and said that they would bring your power prices down by 200.
But so did you're promising me the same thing. So I'm asking again, what happens to you when you don't fulfill your promise that the power price is going to go down? Okay, Labor didn't do it, and we just get to laugh at them for a little bit. What happens when Liberal gets in and they don't do it either? There needs to be something a little bit more severe when you promise me something, other than I get to laugh at you that you promised me something and the opposite happened. Haha, how funny! I'm paying more in power. Haha, how funny! The price of eggs is going up. You know, there needs to be something a little bit more severe. Like, I don't know, like we need to start tying promises to pay cuts in Australian government, in the Australian government or something, right? That could actually be a good financial incentive.
$75 each year. As Australians can attest, they're now paying more than $1,300 than what Labor promised in their energy bills. And I think the point to make is it's not just homeowners and renters who are paying higher power bills, it's farmers, it's business owners, it's cafe owners, it's manufacturers too.
We get it, everyone has to use electricity.
More to produce goods. More to
school children need to use the electricity.
Deliver services. And those costs are just passed on to Australian consumers, which is why Australians are feeling the crunch at the moment. I want Australians to be putting items in their shopping trolley, not putting them back onto supermarket shelves. I want businesses to be able to hire.
To be fair, we're not even putting it in the trolley. We're putting it under our jacket as we walk out of self-serve. And, you know, the nice person who works at Woolworths goes, hey, don't steal. That's not cool. And then I walk away. You know, that's actually what happens. So all they do is shit and makes people go, yeah, absolutely. Like Lord Voldemort over here is saying that, okay, Labor promised that your power price would go down by $200. I'm also promising the same thing, but I actually really mean it, guys. I really mean it. Oh yeah, no one forgets to scan things at the self-checkout, you know. Although to be fair, right, I'm a little bit of like a wimp. There have been times where like I'm going to Coles with my baby. My baby's in the pram. I put my shopping in the pram. And I forget that it's on like there's an item underneath some blankets or something, and then I go back to the Coles and I pay for it. Really, like actually, there would be zero consequences if I just walked away with it, you know. And it's like one item that costs like $5. You know, it's not like I'm walking away with a set of knives or something.
More staff. Not to be putting more money aside to pay ever-increasing power bills. Now, Mr. Speaker, gas is the key in our country, as it is around the developed world, to manufacturing, to making electricity and to keeping the lights on. But the Albanese government has stalled projects from getting off the ground and created a national gas emergency due to insufficient supply. We now know that in our country, Victoria is about to spend
semi-true
an import terminal to bring gas in to Victoria, to import gas into Victoria. Under Labor, gas prices have gone up for households and businesses by 34% and 43% respectively.
Yes, I'm paying more in my power bill, in my gas bill. I know this. You don't have to say it.
A full-time and functioning economy using part-time and unreliable power. Under Labor, the energy crisis and therefore your pain will continue.
And like, that's kind of just like the risk that they take with self-serve, right? Like, you know, at least if you were on the conveyor belt, if there was a person right in front of you, you'd kind of make sure that everything goes on the belt. But if it's self-serve, sometimes like you just can't see things. Sometimes like it's just, you know, and you forget what you have scanned versus what you haven't because you're dealing with like a space that's like this narrow when actually like scanning your products. They don't give you the space that you need to sort of lay everything out correctly. So they need to cop it. Yeah, but are the Liberals going to do anything or do it? Yeah, like the Liberals, what their plan is, at least as far as what I can see, their plan at the moment is, they're just going to look at policies that we have right now, cut the ones that aren't really helping us, and invest that money back in the policies that are helping us. And like, that's okay. It's a decent plan. It is going to help. It is going to do things. But there's a potential that we then fall behind on, the innovation side of renewables. A advancement could come around in the next 5 years, and then we are not ready for it, and then we have to pay up the nose, right, in order to do it. What would actually be better, and this is what I think would be better for our country, if the Liberals said, hey, I'm actually going to make things a little bit worse for the next 10 years. And I need to use some money. I need to start spending some government money for the next 10 years. And that's going to hurt you. But after that, prices will definitely fall because I will have a nuclear power station in every single state. And power prices will 100% fall because I have developed this new technology and infrastructure. But it's going to cost money. I would actually feel better if he promised me that, as opposed to what they're promising me right now, which effectively is the same as what I do with my household budget. I'm just looking at things that I'm spending right now with the money that's coming in and then reallocating how important things are, which it will help and it'll be good, but it's not going to be sizable enough, right? It's not going to make me vote for Liberal two elections in a row. At this point, I'm voting for the Blaze Sex Party. Really, I think the Pirates, they know what they're doing. They actually stand for some good stuff. But why would they be honest about anything? It's very strange. A lot of the politicians that are really, really popular right now are actually the ones that are being honest. And that are saying, actually what they think about things, not just holding a party line. In America, right, there's no Democratic candidate that is popular at the moment. And the reason why is because the Democrats are so tightly controlled as a party that no one is stepping out of line except Bernie. Bernie's probably the only one who is actually stepping out of line on the Democratic aisle side. And he's probably the most popular Democratic candidate that they actually have at this point. And the election was stolen from him in 2016. But they're not allowing him to actually sort of go off and sort of move the party forward. Because they have other positions that they themselves are tied to, and they have to sort of rail against him for. He got Bernie Sanders got called a Nazi the other day, right? Oh, look. Oh, man. Cheap viewers on streamboo.com. Wow. You know what I'm going to do? I'm immediately going to type in that website and I'm going to just buy viewers right now. I think that's a really good decision for me to make. They want better sex education in schools, which is what I agree with. Clive Palmer is over here saying we need Trump in Australia. We're gonna build a Titanic too. There is a version of the argumentation that I do agree with, when Clive Palmer says we need a Trump in Australia. And that version is we need a guy who is not part of the current establishment, who comes in and just kind of starts spamming question marks in the government, right? And starts being why exactly And like, for example, like Peter Dutton pointed out, $10 billion has gone to a home building program, and they have not built any homes over the last 3 years. So let's spam some question marks. Why have we given this program $10 billion and nothing has happened yet? I want an answer to that question. And Katie Gallagher has been trying to defend that position. I don't think very well, but she has been defending that position, or at least trying to. So like, there's that version that I agree with. What I don't agree with though is like, there is a way of fixing parts of government that doesn't involve just like executing that area of government and then like either establishing something new or like slowly reincorporating it back into the system. There should be a mechanism that they can follow that allows them to easily assess, okay, this policy is striving towards this end, and this end. We're giving money, this amount of money for that, and they're spending that money in this way. And then they should, with that information, be able to do an analysis within, at the most, a month. They get a month to put forward a finding. And if the finding is bad, it gets cut. If the finding is good, it stays and maybe gets like, a little bit tweaked a little bit. The last guy, I want someone to question whatever they're doing in Pine Gap. The last guy who did that, yeah. Just mysteriously removed from power, right? Man, I wonder what happens to all these people spamming question marks in government. Why is it that they just seemingly get exiled from their own parties and no longer get seated in their spot ever again? I wonder what's happening. So like that's the line I agree with. In terms of like, we need that sort of Trumpian figure. We also need someone who is actually willing to. Oh, I'm gonna lose it. Oh, I just got it. Okay. We also need like a figure who is able to speak to Australians normally, right? And if he promises something, is able to immediately after the promise has been revealed to not have been kept, go, you know what? I'm sorry, and this is the consequences. I don't know about the other guy at swimming, to be honest. I'm actually more versed in American politics than I am Australian politics. Which is quite funny because our entire system is meant to be built upon like a well-informed public. But in my experience, Australians are like woefully uninformed about politics. It's why our referendums usually end in a no. It's because most people just like don't know what the actual thing being placed in the referendum is, and therefore will just say no because they don't know. Yeah, we are America, but 2 months in the past. That's what Australia is. And like you can see this in like the way that sort of Dutton is kind of like running things. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to embody that sort of like Trumpian ethos. And he's trying to use that similar kind of language. He's trying to like use those, like for example, the other day, and like I don't know if you saw this. The other day, Peter Dutton was like, okay, if I'm elected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to implement a policy that makes it, if you have dual citizenship in Australia and you commit a serious crime, so like rape, murder, whatever, then that person loses their Australian citizenship and is then sort of deported. Right. So it's the same in that sort of Trumpian kind of rhetoric of, listen, if you're in the country illegally, you shouldn't be in the country, and we're going to deport you, and we're starting with the criminals. We're starting with the gang members. And like any normal person looks at that and goes, okay, I agree. But question, Mr. Dutton, of our population of 28 million, how many of them are dual citizenships? So let's just set the number at 1 million. Okay, 1 million people have dual citizenship in Australia. Let's just say that's the number. Okay. How many of those people have committed rape or murder or have done some kind of serious crime against someone else? Like 5? So you're going to spend all this time and effort on a policy that gets 5 people out of the country. Is that really the best use of federal government time and energy? It's like, I don't know. I know. I think that that 2-year gap between America and Australia is more like a 2-month gap at this point. Yeah, it sounds great, right? And that's the problem, right? Politicians are just trying to advertise positions to people, right? And it's actually the same sort of critique you can throw against Trump, right? He's saying things that sound good, like any normal person would relatively agree with. But then you sort of drill down a little bit into the details of it, and you find out that actually this is quite inefficient. This is quite bad. This takes, like, for example, I'm a teacher. I work in education. There would be nothing that would bring me more joy as if, like, NESA was destroyed as an institution. And America has done so, right? They've destroyed their Department of Education recently. Even though it would bring me so much joy for that to happen here, even I know it's the wrong decision. It's not the best thing you could do. Bro, it is getting hard. It is getting very difficult. Actually, I was saying at the start of the stream with someone else. So New South Wales, oh, you briefly did disability support. You deserve sainthood. I work really closely with my diverse learning department, and the work that they need to do is like, sometimes I think that my teaching load is a lot. The work that they need to do for like less pay as well, by the way. They deserve all the nice things in the world. Yeah, the bots are on fire. I mean, look at this person, Garrett781. Dude, listen, I could totally add this person on Discord. Hey, here's a question: why is your Twitch name different from your Discord name? I mean, I don't know about you, Drunk Lily, but I tend to keep my usernames the same across all my profiles. Why is yours different? I want to know, Garrett, if you can give me that answer. But yeah, so New South Wales, in the mathematics course, they moved content from year 12 into the year 10 subject. So content mathematics, like for example, network theory was a year 12 subject and is now in the year 10 syllabus. And it's like, okay, why are they making this decision? And they're like, oh, it's just to add to the robustness of our mathematics syllabus and to increase numeracy, yada, yada, all the things they normally say. Well, you know what else happened? They made maths optional, right? So maths is no longer a mandatory subject in New South Wales. So you don't have to do maths in year 11 and 12. Hey, how can we, on our nice governmental data sheet, show that our students are doing subjects X, Y, and Z and learning topics X, Y, and Z if we make it optional for them to do the subject of maths? I know, I'll just push those subjects in year 10. Like, this is what I truly believe was the machinations of the government regarding that decision. My issue was NDIS was munted. No one knew what was going on. I'd ask someone a question and wait like 4 weeks for an answer. So true. You know what's worse? There's a problem that my diverse learning problem have. A kid will come to our school, they will transfer over to our school. And this person has disability provisions. And this person has had an individual adjustment plan for teachers to read and then hopefully incorporate into their classes. Okay, all right, good. They, for some reason, will call up the previous school and say, "Hi, can we have a copy of your IAP? Can we have a copy of your adjustment plan that you had for that student? That student's now at my school, was at your school. All right. Can I get a copy of that so that we can see what provisions you were giving him and therefore what provisions we should be giving him?" And the school will call back and say no. And they will say no on the basis of it would be a breach of the student's data. Like, what? Like, I'm sorry, but we're all part of the same school system. It shouldn't be a breach of data. Yeah, exactly. And like, I can understand the official reason that they sort of give for these things as well, right? The reason why we have all these bulwarks in place is because of the safety and care of the person, right? It would actually be quite problematic if the school were to instantaneously go, "I trust you 100%. Here is this documentation that has sensitive information regarding the student." Or in your case, you ask around and, the NDIS program and the people around you didn't do their due diligence to make sure that the thing that your client was actually asking for is suitable for them, is covered under NDIS funding, is yada, 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 yada. But again, that goes back to like the point we were talking about before. It could be more efficient. This whole process could be more efficient. It could be better. It is. It's so stupid. The government, I think NDIS and the government have sort of created this new made a new system. So now there's a whole sort of electronic version of the individual adjustment plans. And the team has been uploading all that data into this system, and then basically when a student moves schools, that student's profile will then be sort of moved to the other school automatically. So they won't have to go through this process of calling up the school and asking, "Hey, what were you doing with the kid?" It was a government loophole for shay shit. Yeah. I think it was definitely founded on good intentions, but like there are parts of the program that, to me, again, I spam question marks about. Anyway, I think I'm going to finish off this farm run, and then I am going to call it. It's been an hour and a half. I really want to strive for like an hour each day. Yeah, thanks for sitting around and chatting. Definitely following the tradition of every time you get two people who have worked in in education together in the same room, that all they do is complain. It's a strong tradition that that's being held. Yeah. And because there's an incentive to do so, right? The client is asking for something they need, right? And by upping the price on them, you end up getting more funding for the program overall. Really, Africa? How much money are they going to give you? That's interesting. If they're going to ask you to like change continents. I know that they are handing out fat cash if for teachers to work in rural areas. I definitely know that's the case. First, I'm hearing of sending out people overseas though. Again, Drunk Lily. I nominate you for sainthood. 100%. All right, well, it's good if you enjoy it. All right. How much do we get? We get 312 of these fruits in an hour and a half. All right, so let's pull up the calculator for a second. Is this? No, I'm not screen sharing. Okay. You almost died there. Jeez. Well, I guess like I guess like basically that continent is suffering the same issues we had during industrialization, where there's just like a lot of sort of disease that's lying around because of the new infrastructure that's sort of coming in and the lack of waste management. Yeah. So I want 2,100 fruits. I'm going to divide that by what I have right now. 312. It took me an hour and a half to do this. So I need to do 7 more of these. So 1.5 multiplied by 7. It's going to take me an additional 9 hours. Okay. You're a global nomad. That's really cool. I can imagine. Yeah, that's actually really cool. Actually, if I remember correctly as well, with Afghanistan and Pakistan in particular, didn't we have like an issue 10 years ago with people basically jumping over there in order to join ISIS? And so we had like a whole bunch of government crackdowns on people actually like getting the visas and being able to travel over there from Australia, I think. I vaguely remember this incident. Yeah. So I'm guessing that's just sort of, I get, the remnants of a particular issue of a particular time that's now affecting you. All right, great chatting.